I said.
Are there any public comments? If there are none, we'll move on to the financial report, treasurer's report. We just need to accept that report, which was part of the material that was sent on the web.
So moved.
Have a second? Any questions, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Budget status report. Rick, is there anything that we should be aware of?
You don't have one. We've been out straight with getting our year-end statistical reports into the state, so you didn't get one, but
Okay. Well,
everything's okay so far.
we're not broke. We have money in the bank. We're paying the bills.
We're not filing for bankruptcy tomorrow.
All right. The next one is the technology lease. As you know, the middle school is going to lease clouds. What's it called, Tim? What's the device?
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks from Google. How many are we getting?
The high school's also doing some.
Yeah, we get them too.
I forget
About how
Not in
many?
yet,
Just
I forget how many you're
We
getting.
have 180 coming.
How many you have coming to? 500?
Somewhere in the range like 450 to 500. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but enough for every student in the building, which is 600.
before the financial point, it'll be part of Tim's report, but the financial aspect of those, of that lease is that I need authorization for me to sign the lease for those devices.
Total of 698.
698 Chromebooks. So we have a motion.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Dave?
Yeah, was the lease actually posted so that we could see it? I haven't seen it, didn't see it either, and I'm not sure.
I do have hard copies.
That's probably why we got the hard copies, because we all thought they were posted.
It should be on the website,
Should be,
but it's not.
but it is though.
Okay, it's a 3-year, I understand it's a
Three-year
three-year
lease.
lease, and we own them after the 3 years.
We own them for $1 buyout.
And we have to buy these for what these.
Well, we went over that in quite
You
a,
didn't, I don't remember.
Sure, I can speak to that.
Don't have to.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
So, about 5 years ago, the middle school committed to what is called a one-to-one initiative, providing a device for every student. And the current netbooks are aging or out of date, and so we're replacing those. Sure.
there was a long discussion, there are many choices, and I know that Ed,
I wasn't here 5 years ago.
well, anyway, we had a number of discussions on it, and that was the device that was chosen, and hopefully it'll work out well. So we have a motion on the floor that authorizes me to sign that lease. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We can move on then. The next is the driver education lease. We are leasing from Rick.
Carbone, a Honda Accord, 2014 Honda Accord.
And
We've been under a vehicle for the last 8 or 9 years. It's been quite lengthy, costly lease, and this is a more economical program for us.
There's copies of the different lease proposals here. Again, this was online, but not in your packet.
Okay. I talked to Rick earlier on this, and this seems to be financially the best thing to do. What we need is a motion for Rick to negotiate and sign that lease.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on it?
Just one
Yeah.
comment, that this actually comes in under budget, that,
Yeah.
I don't know if it clearly says that in that information sheet that was passed out, but we budgeted $3,600, and it's gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,600.
And which one is it, Rick? Honda Accord, you said?
2014 Honda Accord.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on it?
So, other than the lease payment, our only obligation will be a couple of oil changes here and there. It'll be fully warranted and everything else.
Do we use the CDC for that sort of thing?
Once in a while we have, but for oil changes and stuff,
Some of your other
I don't-
vehicles are in there too.
once in a while.
Yeah, it'd be nice to, if we
But
could.
with,
But I
thi-
think you gotta be careful
but
with
this being a warranted lease,
then you
we'll
lose your
probably
warranty
take it
if
back
you
to
don't.
we'll take it back to the manufacturer.
Okay. Yes,
How many students do we have taking driver's ed?
There are usually about 20 each semester.
Dave?
I have no issues with this now that I've seen it, but Jim, you said it's on the website.
That's what I was told, is
I'm not sure how to get at, now that things have, the link has changed.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting on too.
when they went to the new, because of the new website, to change the new website?
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
So
that,
maybe we can review how we have access.
We probably ought to have a training session at the next board meeting.
That's a very good
Put it
one.
up on the screen and let
Yeah,
Frank come and
that's a
show
very
how to
good-
navigate it.
Well,
Yeah.
what I think we really need to do is take all of these files and zip them up into one file, so that you just have to either download one file or it can be emailed to everybody. I don't think there's anybody here that still has a dial-up internet connection.
well, I've got one that's not much better, I can.
You got some people to live out in the Italy.
But anyway, I think that's a very good idea to bring somebody in, because I had called Mary Lee, I think on Friday, and asked her to be sure everything was on there, and she told me it would. I did not go check it myself.
I think it is on, but it's hard to access.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will review that.
That's a good suggestion. Maybe Frank could come in and,
Frank or one of his techies can
Oh,
come.
I just figured it out.
very good. Did we vote on that motion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to have Rick sign that and negotiate that lease, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? We can move on. Personnel.
Tim, can I
Yes.
just do one other under finance?
Yep.
And it's just an FYI.
This should be a fun.
Some of you may be seeing, and I'm assuming Nathan is still your representative to the Food Service Committee. But if, those of you that have been around for a few years know that we've had a plan to replace equipment in all of our buildings, and the high school has kind of been the last one on the radar screen because it's going to be a sizable investment. If anyone's ever looked at what's in that kitchen, to replace that stuff's going to be a sizable investment. We believe we have enough money built up in the SVSU Food Service Fund. MAU will have to pay for some electrical upgrades to be done in that area, but you will be seeing an RFP that'll go out on the street. Jim's been working on it. We'll get Sue and or Mike, whoever Sue thinks is appropriate, involved in the coordination and the how that's going to be laid out and put together. But you'll, just in case you guys hear on the street of stuff that's going to be taking place in your kitchen, the goal is to have it done over the Christmas break. That's an ambitious project because it's actually a pretty short break this year. But I just wanted to let you know that that information is going to be out on the street.
As we're on those, thank you, Rick, as long as we're on those things, you might just want to mention to the board that we're in very, very preliminary discussions on looking at alternatives for electricity, particularly in terms of solar power, and seeing, there are lots of good deals which expire, I think, in 2016.
I think it's the calendar year 2016. We've had a couple of preliminary conversations, Jim, myself, Jerry Prue, with BSD, about solar net metering projects. And the short story is there's some very aggressive grants and tax incentives to investors. For some reason, when they wrote the law, municipalities cannot take advantage of those. So you have to partner with an investor. We've had a couple of conversations. It's pretty in-depth and intense. I mean, these contracts are like this thick. We have since, I have since had a conversation with the Vermont Superintendents Association, as well as a number of other business managers who want to form a consortium to put a big project, and this project could be in the Northeast, and we see the benefits of it in a net metering. And on an individual basis, we're looking at a 10 to 12% reduction in our rates in this large consortium, because if it's a large enough project, there's an efficiency of scale that we could be looking to get closer to 20-25% reduction. So we'll I'll be talking to the SU to see if they're willing to be part of that consortium. A lot of people would like to see us part of it because we're big enough to bring some horsepower to the table. And it's really nothing, no obligation on our part to be part of it. It's just to be part of the consortium, to get some state money as a consortium to do a RFP and hire a consultant to help draft all this stuff. So things are in the works and things are happening. But we'll keep you informed as we go along.
Right, we spend about 350,000, Jim, something like that, a year for electricity, I think.
Between the two schools.
Yeah, between the two schools, and, you know, if we had a savings of, 15 or so percent, it might well be worth it. One of the things that I think we have to realize that if we put that much effort and money into it, are there ways that we could spend that money and get a bigger return in terms of savings, in terms of energy savings and things? Those are all questions that I know this board has brought up before. They would like to continue the discussion, and it is going on. Those leases and things, there is a tax situation whereby these people that establish and build these things get a real tax incentive to do it, and it goes on and on. It's just for your information that is in the people are discussing it. In terms of personnel, I'm not, this ESP, who is not, okay, good. Yeah.
You need to vote on an amendment to the ESP contract. There was, in the negotiating process, there was a word, the hours were changed on when overtime kicked in, proposed by the school board side. And it was never, an agreement was never reached, it did not prevail, and when the contract was printed, the change in the hours reflected our proposal, not what was actually agreed. So you need to, it's Article 20, it read 35 incorrectly, it's 30 hours. You need to vote on that, to authorize your chair to sign the new signature sheet for the contract, because it was inaccurate as signed originally to I guess a typing error.
But whatever. Does anybody have a question on that? Like any further discussion? If not, we just need a motion to allow me to sign that once all the boards have approved it.
So moved.
Second. Ed, do you have a check?
I'm not sure I understand this. Are we saying that we're gonna pay overtime after they work 30 hours? Or
After.
they have,
Because you did not prevail on bumping it up to 35 hours, it reverts back to the language that was in place originally all along, which was 30 hours.
what's the normal work week for these people?
Less than 30 hours?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, have there been times when you've paid overtime? I'm sure there is. If what you're thinking is that this is, less hours generate the kick-in of overtime versus what is the law, that's correct. But at some point, this was negotiated in, and the board did try to raise it to 35 this time. They were not successful, so it remains as 30. But it got printed at 35, so. And then the final reading of it, that was caught, so.
Jim Marsden, do you have any comment on that? I know that overtime and hiring other people is always a concern of yours. Whether.
We're budgeted for overtime.
Okay. So this, in other words, when you did your budget, you did it on 30 hours as opposed to 35 hours and that sort of thing.
I did it budgeted on a 40-hour employee, 40 hours per week.
And overtime doesn't kick in over 30. It's this clause kicks in for anybody who's regularly scheduled
Who regularly
to work
works
more than
30
30
hours.
hours. So if you
Kicks in
are,
at 40.
overtime kicks in anytime you exceed what your contract hours say. So
I
if
see.
his employees are contracted for 40 hours, their overtime kicks in for 40. If you're
I see.
contracted to
Okay.
30, then it would kick in after 30.
I see. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Ed. Any questions on that? Did we get a motion? Yes, I think so. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
No, I'm in favor.
Excuse me?
In favor.
Okay, good. Okay, we can move on then to consent agenda. Need a motion?
So
Fran?
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Leon and Sherman are not here, so we don't have any, I don't think there's anything there that I could spot when I took a look at it. Dave?
Spot where? What?
Do you have any, I thought you were looking, okay.
I'm waiting for you to move the motion.
I know. I just wanted to know if there's any questions. Usually when Leon is here, we've got something on the field trips or something else. Yeah, yes.
On the nominations, which are part of the consent agenda, there was one for a summer school VE.
Yeah, we teach.
Why do we do
summer
that?
school. But all of our summer school is to recoup credit. We do it for all our core classes and summer school. I mean, and physical education, that's what we do. So we have 5 different offerings, and it's to recoup credit for a student that has lost credit because they failed a class or lost credit because of absences or absence policy.
Thank you.
Tim, do you want to speak to nominations and things?
Sure. The fall season coaches packet, which I mailed out, which I had to mail out in advance, I found out a few days ago that one of our coaches is not going to be able to commit to the head coach position of JV soccer. Her preference would be just to be a volunteer with the varsity. So Leah McDonald has resigned the JV girls soccer position to be a varsity volunteer. We are moving Tom Ferrillo up from the 7th grade girls soccer position to JV. And Tracy Galley, who is a middle school PE teacher, has come to our rescue again and will coach the 7th grade, one of the 7th grade girls soccer teams. So the change, I pulled those, or I requested to pull those 2 nomination forms. I resubmitted them today to central office. So what I'm asking for is approval for Tom Ferrillo to be moved from 7th grade girls soccer to JV, and for Tracy Galley to take his place as 7th grade girls soccer coach.
And all the coaches that we have hired have been vetted over the summer, or they've coached before?
Yeah, we actually, in that packet, there's only one brand-new coach to the system. Well, I'm sorry, two coaches new to the system, but one of them is a teacher here at the middle school, so she's had her background check and everything. Jeff Silver is the only non-teacher coach that is new that we hired, and he's already completed his background check and completed his concussion course, so he's all certified and ready to go.
That's great. And if you wouldn't mind just giving a little boost to the football program so that...
Yeah, the numbers were very good over the summer in the weight room, and as of last count, we had 58 students in 9 through 12 playing football, including a high number of freshmen. So the enthusiasm is there. We just got to get it to equate to success on the field.
Sure. Well, it takes time. Nothing we shouldn't expect miracles, but it's great. I know Dave spent some time taking a look at different things, and he's enthusiastic. So we have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Very good. We can move on then. Sue?
Me?
Yes, Sue. Maguire?
So we're ready to roll on Monday. We had freshman orientation evening tonight. I just came from there, and it was a good turnout. Tim was there. And everybody's hired. Tomorrow and Friday is when students come in for lockers, ID, pictures, all that kind of thing. So the next 2 days will be real busy at school. And you got anything to say? You all excited?
Yeah, just that fall sports are starting and everything's going really well.
Is the schedule set? Are we pretty well?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's not too much work the guidance counselors have to do at the last minute to change people around?
No, it's really, the last couple of years have been really smooth. There's always some changes, but we hear from students, heard from you, so, and their parents, and we change it during the summer, so it's pretty smooth.
What about new students coming in? I mean, do we have, in the last minute or the last week?
Yeah, we do. We had about 7 this week,
Right.
but they've all met and
And we have...
got schedules for them.
Very
Met
good.
with one this morning.
Very good. Does anybody have any question about Sue concerning the beginning of school and teachers? Or obviously the staff is
Everybody's hired.
in place. We're in good shape. Goodbye, Mr. Pembroke. And any questions for Sue? Tim?
Just a couple of things. I'd start off by thanking Whitman's Feed Store. They were the generous donators of several flats of plantings for the school garden, and so I had a note slipped to me from the Ag Committee wanting to thank them. I did write a letter and formally thank them and follow up with a phone call, but we really appreciate community businesses and the support of the school, as obviously we benefit from that, so I want to thank the folks at Whitman's for that. We had new teacher orientation today in this room. We spent about 6 hours getting to know the new staff. There are 9 new staff members in the building. 6 of them were able to attend today. They seem very energetic, and they're in a variety of positions, science teacher and math teachers and counselors and things like that. And for the most part, all positions are filled, working with Wendy Pierce to fill one more position in student service side, and then we should be ready to meet the new school year. As the chair already recognized, we will be having Chromebooks distributed to students this year, all students. To be prepared for that, we are going to be spending part of our professional development days at the start of the school year breaking the faculty up into small groups and giving them an introduction to the device and the apps that are on it. We feel this is important because it'll be an ongoing process of professional development because the new state assessment is in the spring. The much talked about SBAC test is coming this spring, and it is the expectation of the state that we as a school will administer it and all of our students will take it online. So we're waiting for the state's directions as far as what training is required, and then we'll get to that too. We're looking at a January training for that.
And are we working on any sort of idea of having the students responsible for those units when they get them? In other words, so they have some responsibility for keeping them in good shape, and what happens to them if they are not kept in good shape?
Absolutely, great question. So Dave Hansen, who is our technology integration teacher in the building, has been working over the summer. He will be the one providing professional development for the staff. He is also drafting expectations not only for students but of also teachers on how to care for and how to use these devices appropriately, digital citizenship in the building. And the devices won't be just handed out on the first day. They'll actually have team meetings. Kids will be given some training around them, talk about expectations before the team makes them available to students.
Very good. So will the high school students be taking that same, not the same exam, but a exam at the same time?
Yes.
And are there published requirements for the Common Core or what?
Oh, yeah. There's standards, published standards for the
Standards.
Common
Maybe
Core.
we could, if anybody, I'd be interested in taking a look at them. Could we get them on the website so that at least we could take a look at them?
Yes, we could. I don't know how helpful that would be. Maybe
Okay.
you'd rather have us do a little presentation. I thought we did that.
You did last year, but we
Yeah.
didn't have anything specific. We were just talking about in general terms. But for instance, you know,
On the SBAC test itself, would you like to, although we don't have all the information currently.
That's the problem. The state keeps saying it's coming,
Yeah.
and we don't.
well, let me
have
put it
yet.
this way then. If you would just keep us informed as to
Yeah.
what's happening and what kind of results we can expect from
Yeah.
these tests, when we can expect those results.
Yeah.
And if in fact, I mean, you hear so many rumors about it, there is going to be some sort of evaluation of teachers and curriculum related to those tests.
In Vermont? I didn't know.
Well, that's what you hear in New York State anyway.
In New York State, it
Yeah.
is. It's different state by state, the rules.
No, I haven't heard that presentation.
I haven't heard that either.
Okay, very good. Yes,
I had a question about Chromebooks. Are the students taking those home or are they reading at school?
They're at school. We provide docs for them. They charge. That's kind of the next step in one-to-one is actually, there are school districts within the state of Vermont that the device goes home. That's the next step as far as discussion about security and, yeah, exactly. But there are
Right now,
schools
they're
that
going to go into a charging card at night. That part of your lease agreement was the charging cards that go with the Chromebook.
Yeah.
does there have to be an upgrade in our servers and things like that too, or not?
No, that's already been put in place.
And what about the training for our technical people? You know, the people that do the service on machines and stuff.
I'm pretty confident the 2 techs that we have in the building have spent the last 4 years keeping the netbooks running along. They're pretty adept at screen replacement and the keyboards and the various electronics pieces. The Chromebook is, it's different in that it's not a mini computer like the netbook, which would have run a Word suite kind of setup. You don't do that. A Chromebook is purely web-based, and so it doesn't have quite the moving parts, let's say, of a netbook or a laptop as folks would see that. We personally picked it because it's a relatively inexpensive device at about $250 to $300 as opposed to a $400 or $500 iPad or a $1,000 laptop that other schools have chosen.
But there is a word processing program within it?
Yep, so most middle school students are comfortable and work in Google Docs, which is a word processing system that they can share with teachers and share with each other, so.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions on this? I mean, it's a big step if we're, Fran, I'm sorry.
Just a comment. In their budget last year, Shaftesbury School bought Chromebooks for grades 3 to 6. So by the time they get here to the middle school, they'll already be familiar with that, so that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Is there, Jim, is there a consolidated effort to do with Shaftesbury?
Every school in the district is, Bennington Elementary has done it, Connell has bought them, and at central office today, downstairs central office, I think there was probably 1,000 Chromebooks being unpacked, and a swarm of the tech staff going through and bringing them in, and then they will distribute them out to the system, so.
Very good.
All the districts are on board with it.
Well, that's great. Does anybody have a question, any questions for Tim? Good, then we can move on then. Committee reports, or student representative, I'm sorry. Do you have anything to report?
I think it's basically been covered. I'm pretty excited for school to start. Just fall sports
Good.
are going well. I'm playing soccer. I just came from soccer actually. So
Good.
that's pretty much it.
And a good turnout for the team and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, we have a really, really good team this year.
Good. Well,
And the JV and freshman tryouts for soccer had really good numbers as well.
oh, that's great. Good. Well, I hope that you will bring to us any, not necessarily concerns you have, but things that you think the board would be appreciative of learning about.
Absolutely.
And if there's anything that, you feel that we could be helpful for, I'm sure that we as a group would be more than willing to do what we can.
Could I ask your name? I don't
Morgan.
my first meeting. What is it?
Morgan
Morgan.
Howlett.
You shouldn't have told him. You could have said anything. Yeah. We could have had so much fun out here.
I think it's sitting next to you.
Oh, you can see it in her face. She's an honest one. Okay, we can move on. Ag Committee, I know we've got a number of things. Jim and Nathan, how do you want to handle this?
Jim, go ahead.
Okay, we've got, as you know, there was some discussion at the end of last year concerning a greenhouse that would be basically the CDC's, and it would be over here, and just as an introduction, and so we tied in with Nathan, and Jim has been the one who's been spearheading along with Tim, the location and whatever. Jim?
The greenhouse has been purchased and has arrived at CDC in numerous packages and different shapes and forms. It's going to be quite a construction project, but Tim Payne and myself and Mike Waller from CDC met 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, walked the area out there, discussed it at length. Just for physical size, it's approximately 30 feet wide and 70 feet long. It's a fairly good sized structure. Appears that the high dome portion of it will be, my guess is at least 8, maybe 10 high, door on each end. I have not seen the prints and drawings on it yet. I've seen it physically apart, somewhat familiar with how it goes together. We're working with the forestry program down there and the building trades. We're looking at both that project and our outdoor classroom. And in trying to get on schedule and on track, I think we all feel the consensus is that the greenhouse needs to be undertaken first. And we've looked at sites out there, and it appears the best site is just off of the north side tree line, back about 125, 135 feet from the road. That portion of garden is pretty much overgrown at this point. There is about one row of kale there that I think will be affected by the footprint of the building, but it'll be minimally invasive as to everything else that's going on out there. So when school is back in session and the classes are oriented and ready to go, I think that I did talk to Brian Kuhn, the building trades instructor, and he took part in moving the delivery, and he has it all inventoried and stored in inside, and so we're pretty much ready to go on that one. The structure for the outdoor classroom, there are some stakes out there now marking out what we feel will be the building footprint. It's roughly 30 by 40, 1,200 square feet, which is roughly the size of one of our lab classrooms. Those are not cut in stone yet. There were materials purchased in last year's budget to cover the majority of the materials that will be in that building. And that one will sit in the hedgerow that connects just west of the emergency road. And there'll actually be a fairly nice area, and the way it's oriented is people will be able to transition through from the classroom open space right through the hedgerow and into the garden and vice versa. So I think we've got the site pretty much laid out, and I think it will work for everybody that's going to utilize it.
Couple of questions, Jim. What about the foundation of both those buildings, and what about utilities?
The greenhouse, as far as I can tell, it just sits on the ground. There may be some grading that needs to be done. There may need to be a gravel base put in so you have a firm walking surface. And we're talking about using a SurePack base for around the outdoor classroom. There won't be any foundation. There'll be no water, no power at either facility.
Well, then if the greenhouse needs water, they would bring it by hose, or what would they do?
Yeah, there is a plan. There is some water available off the side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a town spigot, a test spigot, that's down near East Road, and we're going to have to work out whether we draw water and put it in a container and use it that way, or what's going to happen.
I mean, I would assume that most greenhouses need water.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Yep.
Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
The only thing I would add is that Nathan already has us on the calendar in September for an ag meeting, first week of the month.
First Wednesday.
These two opportunities for the garden to grow, no pun intended, and Jim started it because he used invasive, but it's a good opportunity. There's been lots over the years. I think the garden started out as a volunteer, something that people were passionate about, but I think it's grown to the point where now's a good time for all parties, the CDC, the middle school, ag committee, to sit and talk about, all right, what's the master plan for this? Because we have lots of little projects started everywhere, and I think we need to talk about coordination. Because my concern is going forward, I don't want any of these projects to be one of these things that if a person retires or a person goes somewhere else for work, that these kind of are not kept up and not taken care of. That would be a bad thing. And there's plenty of horror stories that, the school garden that was reclaimed. So I'm hoping that when we meet in September that we have a larger meeting than usual and we have some good conversations, because the garden right now serves the middle school. It serves the youth ag program, which is for teenagers at risk. It's got CDC helping us, a greenhouse, and I think that we're going to have to be really clear about what our expectations is and what everybody's responsibilities are, and it's good timing. So I look forward to that conversation in the first week of September.
Is there a date for that meeting?
September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Yeah.
Usually the
Yes,
first
I think it's
Wednesday.
important to have the 3rd.
No, time and location, he said.
4 p.m. and probably in the cafeteria here or the sustainability.
Probably sustainability.
One of the two.
I agree with you, Tim. I think it's important that we have, some line of authority too, so that we don't get into a situation where you know, one group wants to do one thing and one another. And-
Sure.
And just, you know, how we can work those things out.
Greenhouse is an excellent opportunity. I just see, you need to be clear about what's yours and what's mine and how do we share. So,
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Nathan, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, there are a lot of enthusiastic people who are involved in the program, and I think, you know, I think the minutes are on the internet, aren't they, Richard?
It should be.
Yeah. You could check the minutes from the last meeting. I think that'll tell you how active they are and
That's good.
what progress is being made.
Dave, are you getting involved in this?
I have, yes, I was not able to make the last meeting. I think that was the week that I was away or had a conflict, but did get finally to a meeting earlier this summer.
Good, good. Well, it's exciting to see it come along. I hope that it lives up to the expectations we all have. There's always a lot of work. Jim, do you, let's see, do you want to give us a brief outline of what was done this summer? And
Certainly. As everyone knows, it was a short summer based on when school got out and when school starts. And the fact that it rained all summer didn't help any because all my staff had to mow all summer. So the schools aren't ready and I'm not sure what we'll do.
Well, this place looks very neat.
I did have 2 facility staff people retire. Mr. Ted Rice from the middle school, who had been on board about 9 years, retired. And Mr. John Antononi, who had been on board at the high school, retired after 27 years. I have 2 new hires. Kathy Candid came on to replace Ted here at the middle school and is doing a great job. And my replacement for John came on the job today at the high school. And I think he survived the day. I didn't see him at 3:30, but I want to publicly thank the facility staff. It's been a very, very busy summer, and everybody has done yeoman's duty, and the buildings are in good shape. If you walk around, I would be surprised if you found anything that wasn't clean and spiffy at this point. The project, some of the projects that were undertaken on Congress Street, the On-Point program at Congress Street, there were several rooms patched and painted. The hallway entrance flooring, concrete floor was painted. There was miscellaneous maintenance work done, and there was one of the step program office was carpeted. Last year we started to be really aggressive in that program when Carrie Crosick came on board, and that building is amazing at this point. It's come a long way in 2 years. The old vocational building, Sue had made some changes out there and announced about halfway through the summer that we had to paint 9 rooms. That got done.
You're talking about the brick building?
Yes, the low brick
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
and that's been completed. And we undertook a fairly good-sized paint project at CDC and painted most of the main floor public area and down into the atrium. We're about 75% of the way through that now. The painting for this year is done. We've got another small section we're going to try to finish next summer. There was new cove-based molding installed. The director's office was repainted, and we finally got a chance. There are 2 underground tanks that they were part of the CDC when it was built. One was for used antifreeze and one was for used motor oil, which the auto shop generated doing service work. Those are highly regulated tanks. I had to become an A and B certified tank operator, and we have inspections and we have cathodic protection regulations, and they just weren't using the tanks. In the last 2 years, I think we pumped 35 gallons of antifreeze out of the antifreeze tank in a 2-year period. It just made no sense to have them. And they present a liability if they rupture for any reason. They were 17, almost 18 years old. So we pulled those this summer, and all the state testing and all the ground water, the ground soil, everything came back perfect. so we're happy that project's over. In the main building, we completely rebuilt 2 of the big air handlers for the gymnasium. That's an ongoing project we started last year. The gym floor, we were more aggressive this year, and we completely refinished and repainted the gym floor. If you get a chance to look at it, you'll see it looks much different than it did. There's also volleyball lines on it now because Tim purchased a volleyball system, and there were anchor system was cut into the floor where the scorer's stand is strapped down, and I think it'll, most schools now have volleyball in it, so we currently will. There were new backboards, glass backboards installed, and all of the steel backboard assemblies were painted and cleaned up, and we did a safety check on them, and strange as it is, we found 2 of them that had only been bolted into the concrete cross pieces with 3-inch lag bolts. And that whole system weighs about 1,200 pounds. And it's raised and lowered and raised and lowered day after day after day. And it was held up by 2 short 3-inch lag bolts. It's now up with steel plates drilled right through the beams. And I felt lucky that we found it when we did. And the safety pads under both main baskets were replaced. And we began the storage project outside, inside. The main door, the interior door leading into the gym is pretty much completed. At the end of this week, we expect we'll have all the hardware on it and it will function. We've held off doing that, waiting for steel to arrive. The site work is 75% done. The concrete slab is completely done. All the anchor bolts are ready, and we're just waiting for the vertical steel. We had hoped that building would be done this Friday. But that's not going to happen because of a delay in the material. But it will go together fairly quickly when all the pieces arrive.
Okay. Jim, and I assume that the roof is finished on the gym?
Gym roof was finished up the week before graduation.
Okay.
It worked out just fine.
Did we have an additional expense? I know we had a clause in there that if they ran into trouble.
Yeah, there was a only one change order, and what happened is there were sections of the roof that we had required mechanical anchors for all of the roof material, the insulation and the membrane. But the mechanical anchors, actually the way the inside is formed, it's like corrugated cardboard. It has rolled ceilings and then steel reinforcement. And on the thin ceiling, we found that some of the mechanical fasteners were blowing through the concrete. And you were actually getting hunks of concrete falling down. And luckily it happened up on the balcony in the gym, not on the gym floor. So we had to go back to a fully glued membrane. And we had that in the project as an added cost. So we're still under budget for it because the bids came in lower than we thought they would. And the additional adhesive was figured in anyway.
Good. Does anybody have a question for Jim about the state of the buildings? I just walked through very quickly. They certainly, in a general appearance, everything looked very, very spiffy and nice and clean. It's nice to see that. Please pass on to your workers, our appreciation for the job well done.
I'll do that.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, we can go down. I'd like to, it doesn't need any introduction, but most of you know Jim, who is now our new superintendent, who is our big boss. So, Jim, welcome.
Thank you. What I've been doing is following my entry plan that I wrote at the beginning of my job, and what I dubbed my listening and learning tour. Many of you have met with me for a one-on-one meeting with a series of questions specifically designed for board members. I think I've conducted 21 of those meetings. There's still a few people in this room that Mary Lee needs to schedule time with. I hope to get to everybody. I found that very helpful. I think it jumpstarts our relationship. You learn more about me, and I learn more about you. That hour we spend together, we wouldn't make that connection in 6 months of school board meetings, so I found that helpful. Also met similar meetings with all central office personnel. They receive a different series of questions that helps me understand a little bit more about what they do and what their expectations are of me. Next up is the building principals. I've met with 3 building principals. They got a different series of questions. I think Tim has already submitted his questions, his answers to his questions back. Not every principal in this room can say that.
Wait a minute.
Stick it in.
I called you about that.
And how I'm going to do that with principals is going to be in conjunction with a building tour. So tomorrow I am touring Shaftesbury Elementary School and meeting with the principal there. I'll get a tour of the building, and then we'll sit down and go over their questions. I was at Ben L today, Molly Stark yesterday. I'm going to suspend the principal meetings next week because I sense that they're going to have their hands full next week as it is, and then we'll begin those in the first week of September. And then identified members of the community. There's a series of questions with some leaders in our community that I will also meet with and get a feeling. And when I'm done that, I hope to give a report back to the different boards of what I'm hearing and what concerns are being addressed, because I get a sense that even among boards, you don't always get that depth of sharing among each other. So I will give a composite report back when that's done. The other thing that's been occupying a lot of my time is the hiring of staff. As principals are doing the bulk of that, I just get the final person to review. And my philosophy is, if I am going to sign a nomination form that you get, then I want to be able to tell you that I have met that person. So I have conducted, as of today, 42 interviews for staff members in the supervisory union. I have not gotten to everyone. I've had to put some, couldn't get to, but I think when we open on Monday, between all the school districts, there will be over 60 new staff members in different, everything from custodians to paraeducators to teachers to administrators. So that's a lot. But I've found my meetings with school board members, I've enjoyed them. I hope that you have. And the same with the teacher interviews. I find that if I can at least give 15 minutes to a new hire and stress to them the importance that I place on them coming on board and working with us. So that's really what the bulk of my time is. I am preparing for our open days. A different schedule this year, as you probably are aware. Instead of multiple days with the SU providing professional development, they're going to open this year in the individual building, and then all staff converge on the high school on Tuesday, and a morning program put on by the supervisory union, and then they'll return to their individual buildings, or special ed and paraeducated doing different training, and Shaftesbury and I believe Payne are doing something there, and it's going to rotate through all the elementary schools in the afternoon, and then back into the building there with some specialized training. So I think we're ready for the opening. I know from our end at central office, and you're hearing the same sentiments between Jim and Sue and Tim. It's the past few weeks, I wasn't so sure, but I think we have just about everybody in place that we need. There are still a few openings. And one thing that I do want to address with you, and this, the gentleman who was the superintendent director of the Career Development Center left, and the assistant director became the director. And so they're lacking an assistant director right now. And one thing that they've asked, it came up at their board meeting last night, is if we could, if Mount Anthony could share on a help me out with, what's the agreement that we share, it's not an allotment agreement, what is
The person, when we pay for a percentage of the nurse.
percentage, yeah. So what they're asking, if the CDC could purchase on a month-by-month basis until they hire an assistant director, the services of your associate principal to deal with discipline issues at the CDC until they can hire somebody, so.
Would that be Dave?
Yes.
That would be Dave, yeah.
And his team.
We would, the two business managers will enter into negotiations on what that will cost. The figure that I've been given preliminary is, it's like $12,000, it was the whole year, and so, I don't know if that's the members here on the CDC.
There weren't any numbers given.
Yeah.
It was
I believe the
really
CDC.
consensus to accept the concept and to proceed with the negotiation.
So, I guess I would ask if this board is in agreement that we can offer that service at a prorated monthly basis once the two business managers go into the allocation agreement. That's the word I was thinking. The same way we do for the school nurse to the CDC, the school. If you don't know that, the school nurse at the high school is also the school nurse for the CDC, and the allocation agreement says what percentage of salary the CDC pays, and some other services too. So they're asking that on a temporary basis.
Sue, my only concern would be, obviously, if it meets with your approval and you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that Dave has the time to be able to do
Mike
it.
Lawler.
Yeah,
He
I
came
should have
in.
mentioned that you and Mike met
Yes,
on that.
we met originally.
Okay.
I think it'll be fine. And so does Dave. Barry.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on that, or?
Well, I think we should have, we approve, what we're really approving is the sharing of administrative duties between the CDC and MAU. Would that be appropriate?
Well, it's really just around disciplines, just the dean of students.
That's the only issue, yeah.
But sometimes that gets hard to define. And I'm fine with that type of a motion, but,
Well,
I would make it that specific, because you're really not sharing administration except for the dean of students around discipline issues.
okay, do you want to word it in such a way that you're comfortable? I'll make a motion.
We'll add to the allocation agreement,
Add to the allocation agreement that the services of.
the
we say
dean of students. I would say the
Yeah,
dean of
let's call it the
students.
dean of, service of the dean of student provided from Mount Anthony to the CDC on a month-by-month basis, cost to be negotiated between the two business managers.
That sounds fine. We didn't get the word discipline in there. Are you happy with just having?
Yeah, because that's what the dean of students'
That's-
job is.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Did you get Mr. Recording Secretary?
Yep.
Very good. Would you read it back, please?
Add to the allocation agreement between the CDC and MAU, the services of the Dean of Students, on a month-by-month basis, and the allocation will be determined by the two business managers.
Very good. Do we have a
Think you got
motion?
it all.
Yeah. Do we have a motion to that effect? Do
So, moved.
you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Oh,
Any sense of how long it might be before there's a hire?
No, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be 1 month or 2 months. There is the possibility it could stretch into the school year. My guess is it'll be January 1st before, they did attempt to fill it. It's a tough time of year to, it's the same issue we're having at the supervisory union trying to fill the assistant superintendent position. This is not the time of year that your best candidates are necessarily available. So I'm thinking their best shot for doing it will be January 1st.
any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
I'm going to abstain,
Okay.
simply because I'm on both boards.
Okay.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, just a couple of notes. I'm very thankful for the efforts of Dave and Rob in getting the congratulatory letters that went out to 4 members. Dave, would you just, because you did the lion's share of the work on this.
We were thinking that it would be nice to acknowledge some of the good things that people have done. We sent one to Tom Otero for his, well, he's still with us, but he's done with Girls Lacrosse. Scott Legacy for his continued excellence in wrestling, softball coach for the team, and Judy Estes with the yearbook. And we're hopeful that, we'll have other suggestions.
We had one more person too, softball.
She said.
Oh, okay, sorry, I
I didn't
missed.
have a name, I just said softball.
And I gotta say, it was appreciated. Two of them approached me, showing me the letter. It's appreciated when we do things like that.
What is her name? I should.
Katie Contrada.
Very good. Dave and Rob did the lion's share on that, and I'm thankful. And actually, Mary Lee was helpful too.
Yes, I saw.
That's good. I'd just like to remind people that we are at our next meeting. We'll have a number of different things. We'll have an executive session that I hope all of you will make an effort to attend, that will deal with personnel. I will be meeting with the principals to discuss further what we initiated at the end of the year about getting some specific, measurable, tangible goals that we think are obtainable for the next year. And I hope that we will, with the help of the administrators, come up with some suggestions and something that we can then measure to see how well we can do it. I'm just a believer in at least having some definite goals that we can set out, things that we feel are important, things that we can measure to see if we can meet those goals. Just help us get a little bit focused on things. And I hope that, as always, if any of you have any suggestions or things that you believe we could be doing more or less, I bring them to my attention, and I certainly will make every effort to follow through on it. Ken, you had mentioned, I think at our last meeting, that the state was going to have a meeting sometime. Was that in this month?
No, the Vermont School Board Association is having a regional meeting in September 15th up in Manchester Elementary.
Okay.
And Rebecca, the new Commission of Education, will be there in person. And will give us a little presentation and a give and take on questions.
Maybe, could you just get something, maybe Mary Lee could send something?
I have asked her to do that.
Okay, good.
You can sign up at VSBIT.org. They do provide a meal before the meeting starts.
Okay,
So there's a definite number available.
okay. So, and you'll get something, Jim? Very good. We have a couple of policies here. Does anybody want to speak to nutrition and wellness?
I'll speak to it.
Good.
I'll speak to it because when we warned it last time, I had some questions that I've since had addressed by talking to a couple of folks on the policy committee and Maureen, food service committee. So I can answer any questions that people might have. I think Rick actually talked a bit about it at the last meeting as well and explained that most of the changes were intended to bring the policy into compliance with what the federal government wants through the SDA and what the state mandates we have as well. So there's been some language that was deleted. I don't think we see that in the version that we've got posted today, but in general, the policy is intended now to be consistent with what we're required to do.
So are you comfortable with us adopting the?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. And there were a couple of things that I thought, possibly could have been left in, and Maureen agreed. I think my sense at the end of the conversation was that rather than go back and start the whole process over again, it would be 3 months before we have the policy. If it goes back to the policy committee and it needs consensus from all the boards, we can always work to make changes to any of these policies.
Sure. So would you like a motion then to accept the policy?
I would.
Okay, would we have a motion to accept
So moved.
5156? Thank you, Fran. Second? Second? Second, very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Very good. Appointment of administrators other than the superintendent. Does anybody want to speak to that, Jim?
No, I don't.
We tabled that at the Shaftesbury meeting.
Okay.
Because we didn't know if the superintendent is aware of that or has seen it anyway, so we wanted to wait and.
It's just that I have read it and reviewed it, and I have no issue with it as amended.
Okay.
So we could warn it then?
Yes.
Do we need a motion
So
then?
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any questions, or this is just a warning, which means it goes into the hopper and everybody still is, we're not adopting it, we're warning it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Go on down to public participation at board meetings. I'm not a great one for policies, so. Any questions on that? Once again, we're just warning it.
I'll move it.
Second?
Anybody? This is just a warning, we can go over it. I'm sure the policy committee will at a later date go over it. All those in favor of warning it, simply say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That's good. Tim, did you just, before we conclude, did you just want to explain what all this
Sure.
is?
Yeah, the packets, as I do every year, I have an annual report for athletics and activities that it's been posted on the website for the past month. Board members were alerted if they wanted to take a look at that, but I also passed it out in case anybody had any questions. For our viewers, the website is www.maupatriots.com. This report, as well as a lot of other information, is up there. It has a year in review of athletics and activities, some of the goals and expectations we have. It has gate income totals, team-by-team financial reports, honor roll figures, participation figures, a list of all the state championships and runner-up teams, and a breakdown of all the team records for the varsity sports. So it is pretty extensive and it's pretty transparent. So like I say, anybody that wants to know how much money we bring in at games or how much it costs to put a football team on the field, or those kind of questions can be answered in this report. And if anyone has any questions, to drop me an email, and hopefully it's something people
I just glanced at it very quickly, and one of the statistics that I thought was interesting is Mount Anthony Union High School student athletic participation. And if I'm reading this right, it's the highest it's ever been?
It's yeah, it's worth noting. I mean, even though enrollment numbers have gone down, the number of participants, and again, the reason for that is that when students come forward, for example, volleyball that we're adding this year, and really want to do something, the school board's been really supportive of allowing that to happen. So, there's just continual, especially with clubs, you're seeing every year different ideas, different clubs coming forward. We lose some, but they're replaced by different clubs, as Tim and Sue can both attest to.
Well,
so.
81%, I think, is what it says here. That's a very impressive figure, and I'm sure the kids benefit from it. Are there any other things that should be brought before the board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Very good. Thank you all.
Oh, my lord.